Hello, everyone. So I got this message on Osu, and basically it was a new mapper who said that they were inspired to try to start learning how to map because of my videos, and they've watched some of the Pishy tutorials, and unfortunately they had difficulty actually applying it to a song that they liked, You Made Chizu. Um, and so, yeah, here we are. I'm going to sort of talk through my general process and how I would approach, the map. I'll probably map a few second segments here and there and jump around the map, kind of talking about my general process and flow when I map, and giving tips and tricks along the way. So we'll kind of hop right in. Hopefully, this will give this individual a place to start from when they are approaching really this map, or any map for that matter, because much of mapping is a repetitive process. It's things that you build over tons and tons of iteration. So we'll go ahead and hop right into this. This is You Made Chizu. I just simply made another. I basically went up here, hit a create new difficulty button, deleted all of the objects, and then I'm also going to go ahead and delete all of the timing points. So Control A, there, save. So now all the timing points are gone. So I have a completely blank diff on this set here. The great thing is that because it's ranked within the last couple of years, I'm pretty confident that timing is accurate. If I grab something from like 2012 and earlier in that range, timing becomes really iffy. And even more recent ranked stuff can be incorrectly timed, but usually it's acceptable. Whereas, if you grab something, especially from like the 2008, 9, 10 era, a lot of times it's not correctly timed whatsoever. So yeah, really, we're just looking for something functional here. So first step in mapping is sort of obviously getting a sense of the song. So I'm guessing at this point you've listened to the song, you kind of have a vision for maybe the kind of intensity or difficulty that you're looking to go for. I recommend going in here and setting your slider velocity for something, for this 180-ish BPM, anything from like 1 to 2 for that base slider velocity usually works pretty well. If you're talking really low SV, you may want to or if you're talking really low BPM, I should say, you may actually want to increase the slider velocity to a higher value. Otherwise, your slider changes become, your multipliers on that with the green lines become really insignificant. But something like a 1.8 for 176, something that I always do is 2.0. I like my style is always kind of like a 2.0 on the with most BPMs. Just set it there, and it's usually fine. Okay, now we have that. We also want to establish in the song setup panel what circle size we want and what approach rate we want, because those two values are going to affect how we map, whether consciously or subconsciously. Usually, for most maps, AR or CS4 is usually a very common sort of jump map, generic sort of CS. It's not too big, not too small. And anywhere above 9 is usually acceptable if you're aiming for anything insane and above. So that's usually a good spot. These values down here, the OD and the HP, do not matter whatsoever when you're mapping. They only affect how it plays, in terms of like how difficult things are. If you're mapping something really, really high BPM, really in like, tons of circles, very dense, then having a higher OD may be kind of necessary to prevent note lock. But I could put it to 0 and it has no effect until I have to go to the ranking process. And then, some BN's going to be like, hey, change this. So I wouldn't worry about those two values there at all, because they don't affect my mapping choices whatsoever. Okay, so I recommend using the bookmark feature a lot. So I go through and I segment out which segments of the song are new and distinct so that I know how much I need to repeat things. And I want to have a memory of which sections in the song repeat, meaning which ones do I need to pay attention to for consistency and which ones are completely unique and don't want to repeat at all. And then I can kind of do whatever I want in those sections because there's no need to be consistent elsewhere. right? If I do something really, really cool in one section and it repeats 5 times, well, then I'm going to have to find 5 ways to variate that, and that may not be very possible if I chose a very, very specific idea. So in those cases, my idea might be a little more general to give myself more room to work with on the variation. I also like to go through and scope out the general intensity of each section, what I'm looking for, particularly in terms of slider velocity. So you can actually go in and add green lines as you go, and maybe I'm going to look for, maybe my chorus is probably going to be like a 1.3. So let me go over to the chorus. That's not quite the chorus. Here's the first chorus, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and bookmark that. That's Control B for that hotkey reference. Go into the green line. There is a green line for adding hotkeys. I just never remember what it is. So let's try like a 1.3. That's usually a pretty decent SV, and see kind of how fast that is. So this is a 1. That seems perfectly acceptable for me. Like 1.3, that's like maybe even slightly fast. You can kind of gauge how intense you want things to be. This would be like a 1/2 circle. Yeah, okay. That seems fine. So like I'll do a 1.2 for the chorus, or maybe I'll do a 1.1 for the first chorus, and then where's the second chorus? Let me Control B on this. So this is the end of this chorus. That's actually right here. Let's find the next one. And this isn't the chorus here, but it is an intense part. This is pre-chorus. Okay, here's the chorus. Okay, so we have this. And then for this chorus, maybe I'll go bump it up to 1.2. And sort of predetermining those changes, those increases in intensity as the song progresses, can help to structure your planning as you map, right? Rather than, oh, I made the first chorus way too hard. How the heck am I going to make the last chorus even harder? And then you just have cross-screen jumps, and nobody likes those. So let me go ahead and bookmark the end of this one. Kind of goes to the end of the map anyway. So, yeah, whatever. Something like that, right? And then this part is going to be really calm. I don't really feel like I have to do too much with like the slow sections pre-planning it, because it's pretty easy to do that later. But like, you really want to get a sense for what is the highest point of difficulty in this map, so that I can plan the calmer sections accordingly. Like if I know that my 1.0 is going to be the chorus, this first chorus, I don't want this part, this intro, to also be close to that, right? I might make this 0.7, and we'll kind of see how that feels. Yeah, that seems fine. Maybe I'll even exaggerate that contrast even more by making this a 0.6. And there is really there's no problem with having too extreme of a contrast for the most part. It's very rare that that happens. Usually the problem comes when there's not enough of that contrast, right? So if you don't make the SV changes dramatic enough, people just don't notice it. Whereas if you make it too much, well, oh, hey, your map is more dynamic as a result. Who cares? That's a nice thing, actually. Okay. So this is the start of the map. We'll go ahead and start placing some circles. I usually go through each section and rhythm it out first before I place the circles, before I pattern it, because it helps to plan the rhythms for me. And that's my approach. Some people do all of it at once. I know, like Devious Panda, for example, he, if I remember right, he places a circle, patterns it, and then hit sounds it before placing the next circle. And that's everyone has a different workflow. But I pre-plan things. I'm always thinking about it. So there is a circle here. There is like a hit here, and there's like a drum and also another drum here. So, I could do something like this. But the problem with that I find is that it's going to take away the emphasis on this hit. And I think I'd rather just like leave this blank and do that, or perhaps like this. I'm okay with mapping that drum and then just doing like this. Maybe I'll even like place a big jump here. Make it kind of unexpectedly big. And I think if I'm going to do a big jump here, because I want to contrast the big jump with the slow slider, I think I'm going to actually make this slider even slower. So maybe like 0.5. And then I get a bigger contrast with the velocity of my cursor. And this is getting a little bit advanced in my thought process here. Okay. And then anyway, moving on. When we're thinking about rhythms, we want to think about what is the most important sound, what stands out to me in the melody, what's sort of the overall vibe of the section, what instrument is standing out to me. I always am mapping the most interesting thing at any given time, for the most part. Now, when I listen to this, the melody is seemingly a lot on that piano, right? And so if I'm mapping this, I probably want to be focusing on that piano more than I want to care about the drums. Like, the drums are nice, but I don't want them to distract from the focus on the melody. So I'm going to make sure I focus that. So perhaps I'm going to do some longer sliders. The nice thing about longer sliders for a slow section is that they decrease the intensity, which allows me to have more intensity later on to have that contrast between those sections. And then perhaps I do this for the two pianos. Okay, so this one's interesting where I have the two drums here. I have a drum here, and I have a drum here, and then a big hit here. So obviously, I like sliders because they decrease the intensity here, but what I can't do is this. I can't do this, right? Because this is for drums. This is for the melody that's bigger. Like, this is the more important thing. This is the impact. So if I do a held slider into another held slider, it makes the second held slider feel like nothing, right? There's no contrast. There's no emphasis there. So I need to do something different with this that isn't this, right? Like, this is off limits, period. So what can I do? I could do two circles, but that feels a little lame to me. And it doesn't really capture the held notes that are there. So I think what I'm going to do is 2 1/2 sliders here. Like that. I could do this. I think I'm just going to do this. And I'll like find a way to pattern it that makes it play nicely. And then I'm going to... This is going to be a repeat. So if you watch my analysis of Close to You, that's my first uploaded video on this channel, this section is going to repeat a couple times, this melody. And so what I'm going to do is like literally just copy paste this rhythm over here, and we'll see how that goes. Okay, it worked pretty well, right? And then it's going to repeat almost exactly. I didn't map this rhythm because I don't think this rhythm is that important. This drum. There is some sounds here, but if I do a 1/2 slider here, then I don't get the rhythm separation here. If I do 2 circles, I don't get the rhythm separation here, right? So I kind of am in a situation where I think the best choice is just to not map this whatsoever. And maybe I could do this. So this one's a little different. This one definitely is a little different. So I'm going to map it with 2 circles instead, because there's 2 important drums here. And then I can do the same. So what I did was I changed it based on what was different, right? It was going to be exactly the same rhythm, except the song changed, so I mapped what was different about it. And then what I'm going to do to make that contrast here is I'm going to stack this one probably, and I'm going to space these out so that there's going to be a separation, not only by the very large timeline gap, so these become kind of separated on the timeline, but they're also going to be different patterns, right? They're going to feel different because of the patterning. So I think it'll be okay. We'll see how it plays out. This one's going to be a little different, probably, so this is a very important hit here. So I can try to keep it calm by doing 1/2 slider or 1/1 repeat here. Let's see. I can't do a 1/1 here. I could do another repeat, but I find that to be lame. I think I'll just do this. Yeah. So I'll probably do this because I don't want to do the multiple repeat, and I don't really want to like do this into a circle because all of these are kind of the same. Like this is okay-ish. I just don't personally like it. So I think I'm gonna do the 1/2, the 1/1 sliders like this. Because it kind of treats these two like they're the same sound instead of this like it's one sound and then there's a fourth unaffiliated sound here. That's not really how I'm interpreting these violins. Your interpretation may be different, and that is okay. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Then the rhythm does change here because there's more drums here. And in this case, it ends up working out that this is a 1/1 because I'm not going to do the 1/1 slider idea here. I'm going to do probably lots of circles for the drums. But what I'm going to do is, even though the circles, the rhythms will be on the drums here, because that's what changed. And again, I'm kind of mapping the way I would always map here, except what I'm doing is I'm representing the changes in the song so that there's a natural contrast that is created, a natural representation of the music. And then I can put the jumps, the movement to each of these on the melody, the piano. So even though circles are on the drums, the movement is representing the piano, and so I'm representing both of those aspects of the song very well here. There's no sound here, and then there's going to be like a crescendo of some kind here, or a decrescendo. But it sounds like it's going to be on a higher beat snapping divisor. It's going to be like 1/12 or 1/16 or something like that. Like it's really fast. So I'm not going to map that precisely. I think what I'm going to do, or I guess I could if I did a buzz slider, so I could do something like this. But it ends up feeling like too intense. I don't even know what snapping it is. It's maybe 1/6, whatever it is. It doesn't really matter what it is. I don't intend to map that exactly. I think what I'm going to do is sort of just map a stream thing like that. And we'll see how that feels. Actually, this is too early. I'm on the 1/6 divisor. Whoops. one trick you could do is you could do like, maybe I'll do it on 1/8. Again, I'm really too lazy to figure out what the heck this actually is. So you could do something like that. It kind of depends on the difficulty of what you're going for. If you're mapping some like 7-star diff, something like this would be totally fine. If you're doing a 4-star, then I really wouldn't. It's technically fine, but I think this is just too intense feeling for what the song is providing here. So I'm going to find a different method. I think I'm going to do this. And I'm also going to increase the SV here, because the section calls for a little bit more momentum on my sliders. Okay, so I'm going to increase the SV even more for this section. And listening to this section here, I'm going to figure out what the important melody aspects I'm going to be following. What is standing out to me is not the drums, but it's the piano in the background. I mean, it's 40 meter P. If the piano is not the focus when you're mapping 40 meter P, why are you mapping 40 meter P? Okay, that's my TED Talk out of the way. So I'm going to be really focusing on that piano here. Let's see if I can capture that piano. Something... I think I want this one to be active. So part of what I'm thinking about is active versus passive rhythms. And active rhythms are anything that you have to click on. And passive rhythms are anything that you do not, which is exclusively for slider tails and like spinners, technically. So what you generally want to do is you want to put like the important things, the things that stand out to you, the things you want people to follow consciously on active rhythms, because that's what they actually have to click. So if I put this on the tail here, the player doesn't click it, and it feels less emphasized, and I don't want that. So I'm not going to put that there. And I'm going to be making edits to this here. I think I'm going to fill it in with a circle here, just to keep sort of the intensity up a little bit. Because if I left a gap here, it might feel a little weird. But honestly, like, I do it in my own maps all the time, so... I don't say feels fine, actually. Yes. I think I'll do this. Okay, got it. I don't know if I want this one to be... I think I actually like that longer. So I could do a repeat, I could do this. Okay, I think I'll do this. We'll go with this for now. This would be like a more traditional way of mapping it anyways, so... Okay, I'll make sure I NC that. Okay, so now the section is going to repeat. So I'm going to just like copy paste the rhythms from here to here. And I know it's going to repeat because there's a big white tick, and the big white ticks are usually representative of the new measure. And I'm going to be listening for what changed. Like over here, it felt like there was more of a gap in the rhythm. But this one doesn't really feel like it has it. There's a really active drum here, so I think I'm going to turn this into a repeat. And then it doesn't really have a melody on this one. Instead of it's over here, so I'll move that over. And I'll just extend this. And then the melody is actually here, so I'm gonna do this because there was like it's like a two hits there on the piano. And then so this kind of gets held, and then there's another 2-hit here. And the reason I did this way is because this sounds very similar to this. So I'm going to do like the same circle into slider idea. But this one doesn't have a follow-up after it, so I'm just going to make it a longer slider. And then I would leave a longer gap here. And I know I'm leaving a lot of like rhythm gaps here, like a lot of 1-1 gaps, but it's a calm section overall in the song, right? This is not the climax of the song, and so what I'm doing is intentionally leaving gaps in the rhythm here, so that in the chorus, when there is no gaps or when there's less gaps, there's going to be that contrast. If I make it full of 1-2 jumps and things like that in this part, then there's not going to be any contrast later, and the map is going to suck. And then also, this is hard focusing that and really important piano melody that I really love about the song and really all of 40 Meter Petey's songs. Okay, and so now let's go ahead back and we'll start patterning these two sections here. And I'll just demonstrate sort of general things. So I already talked about, and you sort of saw when I was actually mapping out these rhythms, how I was already in my mind thinking about kind of where things were going to go relative to each other, like spacing wise, maybe a little bit of movement. So like I already knew that I was going to make these kind of a big spacing, probably anti-flow like this, where you have to like play into it a little bit. These ones are going to play kind of smoothly, so I could do something like make these into a triangle. That would be a really easy way to make them good. So like 120-degree rotations with the hotkey that I used is Control Shift R, and that's rotation. You will memorize all these hotkeys in due time if you continue learning how to map. And got that. So I did a little bit of a triangle type of shape here. And what I'm doing with my spacing here is that I'm making all of these gaps, like this one to this one to this one, approximately the same. And I'm just eyeballing it, but that comes with experience. One trick that you can use is you can use the end of the approach circle um, for like say the slider ball follow point here. So for example, if I put my tail right on here, I could place my next object right on the edge of the follow the ball here, whatever it is, whatever, I forget the name of it, the slider ball follow circle thing. So I could place it right there, and if I go do the same thing here, put my timeline selector right on the tail of this slider. I place this, the edge of that, right on the edge of that. And now what I end up with is something that's very easily, like was very fast. There's more exact ways of doing this, but this was very fast to approximate things that are evenly spaced so that they look kind of nice. Like visually, aesthetically appealing. Now, with more practice, you kind of learn to just eyeball it, and it gets really close, and the idea is that it's close enough that nobody's going to notice it rather than it's perfect, right? Nobody's going to notice perfection any more than they're going to notice close enough. Okay. So I have this pattern over here. I have a huge gap in distance, so I'm going to put this on the other side of the playfield just to like not stay in one spot too long. And I might just use like a Control G here. For this slider, maybe I will, because these two are sort of separate, but still kind of related to this next one, because it's going to be another grouping of 3 here, because this is what I did over here. I did this group of 3 with the triangle, so I can just go ahead and copy paste. I'm not going to copy paste this actually right now, because the angles aren't going to be the same. But what I'm going to do is this is like a group of 2. It's not going to be a part of the triangle, but I want it sort of still related, so I'm going to place it in the same part of the playfield. And I'm going to copy paste this slider here, Control Shift S to scale by 2, and it gets exactly the same angle as you can see, but it's twice the size. And then I'm going to Control H this so that it ends up being like a mirrored angle here, and I'll probably place that right there. And I can probably space this even more, so maybe I'll do that right there. And then I'm going to copy paste it again to recreate the same thing that I did in the first pattern. But maybe I'll do it like this. Because I don't have room to do it over here like I did in the first time. But the idea is that it's that triangle shape, or that it's creating a triangle. And I can create triangles in more than one way. I could create triangles like this too. I could create triangles just as well like that. So now this is also a triangle, but it's on the head instead of the tail. Okay. Now, there's also another timeline gap, but I think because I'm going to do a jump here, I don't really want to do a circle here and then jump back into a part of the screen that I already was at. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stack it here and then use the jump to go then move into the next part of the playfield. What I try to avoid in my maps is just using sharp angles all the time, because if I use sharp angles, guess where I end up? Right back where I started. And I don't want that, because then I get really cluttered on the playfield. And that becomes ugly as heck. And sharp angles, if I do a lot of sharp angles here, it'll make the sharp angles, if I use them in the chorus, even less impactful. So instead, I probably will just use like a nice wide angle. Wide angles tend to be really nice if you use them. Especially, I personally love wide angles like this. Something like that would be super cool. Okay, so now I have this, and maybe I'll just like have it follow this. That line, follow point. Now, there are exact ways of creating this line where they're all exactly the same spacing, but as you can see, like visually, it's pretty close, I think. I'm not going to pay too much attention to it. I just kind of eyeballed it. And again, with practice, you'll get better at that. I think I will put this maybe there. And this is going to be a repeat of that idea from before. Oh, this isn't long enough. So I rotate that. In this case, I don't really have enough room as that I wanted, so I'm going to angle this more this way and then redo it so that I can get kind of more into that corner that I want. And then I could do a lot with this next one. Anything that I do is going to have emphasis because it's sort of just unexpectedly rhythm. So I think what I think I'm going to do is sort of like this and sort of something like that, probably. And just throwing that out there, I don't know. But it kind of creates this, like, continuity here, this build-up into this next section. And my current rhythm only has, like, two objects for that build-up, so it's kind of difficult to create a nice build-up without building on previous patterns. So I'm going to do something like that. The overlaps are intentional here, because what they're going to do is they're going to create that link, that visual link. And it helps prevent the spacing from being ginormous. I don't really want the spacing to be that big. And then I'm going to do stacks with these groupings. And the groupings here are going to help follow the melody, while the drums are represented with the actual active rhythms. And then because this one has a difference on that end, I'm going to unstack it. I think I'm going to sort of scale this up even more like this. And then, because now that my spacing is really big, I've created some big spacing. And I'm just going to go with this for now. I would probably not do this in my own map, but hey, we're just kind of YOLO mapping it quickly. But because I've created this big spacing, well, now I don't want to do another big spacing, right? So I'm actually going to anti-space it, where I stack it, and now I have all this energy, and it has to stop right here and get held, and that's going to give this a ton of emphasis. This actually, I don't like this rhythm very much. Can I do this? I think I like that rhythm more, actually. And I don't really want to do more circles, because I already did a bunch of circles here. So I think I'm going to do these sliders here with kind of relatively large spacing. And that'll help contrast it more. By using the relatively large spacing and like sort of the anti-flow, I can have still quite a bit of contrast here, and emphasis, despite the less dense rhythm choice. Now, fortunately, what this ends up doing is it creates this opening in the center between the two, where I can then place something like this. And because I'm now creating symmetry, it emphasizes the thing in the center. And I'm going to create a stream here. Now, I generally just hand place the streams. One technique that you can use to place streams is using distance snap. And so if I set my distance snap multiplier to, like, say 1.3, I can then just kind of line them up like that. Or I can use the slider convert tool. So that's Control-Shift-F, convert slider into stream. And I can select the number of objects. Now you can see I get a perfectly straight line, because that's what I had converted, a perfectly straight slider. I'm not going to do that because I just hand placed them myself. And I think I'm just going to have it flow out of this, like this. Something like that sounds good. And I kind of think I like that. Maybe I'll do like this, where it's paralleled and but continuing in the same direction. It's pointed in the same direction. So perhaps I'll do it like this. And I'm just copy pasting and rotating. Control Shift or Control H rotates horizontally. J rotates vertically. So I can do like this. And I'll probably just copy paste this slider over to here, and then have this one go down instead of up. What did I have this rhythm for? This one was a longer one. This actually is all kind of in one combo. I think this is all in one. So I'm going to have this just be this, but maybe Control H instead. I could even put it in here. Okay. So because there's not very much of a timeline gap here, right? This is only a 1/4 gap. What I don't want to do is create like a huge spacing to this next object because I don't have a lot of rhythm gap for that. But because this is a very long held slider, I can use slider leniency to make a little jump more playable. So I'm thinking actually I'll do this, where it's going to be the first time that the direction changes from going up to down. So it's going to have a big emphasis, and it's going to still be playable because slider leniency on this means that you kind of just get to end the slider. You don't have to follow the slider all the way to the tail, because you can just sort of go up this way and then come down. So it makes this very playable. So I actually like this quite a bit. Oh, whoopsie. Sometimes the editor will bug out like that. So I'm going to copy paste this one over to this 5. Control J to flip it like that. And then NC it to signify to the viewer that that's where I'm separating things. I think I like the horizontal idea that I kind of just like free-handed earlier. But I'm going to make it nicer by taking this one, rotate it 120. And then I'm going to rotate it, Control H over to here. And using the visual spacing here, I'll place it into here, and then I'll get a triangle, I think. And then I'll probably take this so that I have the same curvature, but I'll just flip it onto this side, and then I'll scale it till it's that size. And now what I can do is just do the same idea that I did before. Take all the same ideas and use the new angle that I've set up. So like this angle was set up by the fact that I had all of these objects the way I did. And this is actually a little bit too far, so I'll bring that in so that's the same the visually spacing there as to here. You want that visually spacing to have them nicely related visually. Copy paste. Use copy paste. Very much so. It is a very good tool to make what is going on. Delete that. Make this smaller. And by using the copy paste and then the scaling tool, I can keep the angles. I think I'm gonna do this. Something like that is fine. I might do a triangle here. Oops. Do some more triangles, because that's what I've set up that I was doing earlier. And then I'm going to make a nice circular flow here, I think. Just keep that triangle idea going. And then this one's going to be different because the melody changes here. It's no longer a sort of developing. It's a repeat type of thing, to me, sounds like. But I want to emphasize this as being different, because it's very clearly different. So how I'm going to emphasize that, I think, is just by making a change in what I do. So by maybe like copy-pasting this, and then flipping it, Control-J like that, and then making it go in like this one. Move this up to make room for that. And then I have a big timeline gap here, but there's still some activity in the song, so I'm not going to stack it. I'm just going to like go to the other side of the screen, somewhere further away, so that I have using more of the playfield. Just copy paste the same slider. It's nice and easy. And something that I really love is using these long breaks, with these long sliders. Just put them on opposite side of the screen, like rotate, parallel them. Okay, so something like that, right? Let's take a look. This part is going to be active rhythm-wise. So you're going to have to challenge yourself on this one to balance the density of the rhythm with the spacing and the slider velocity to make it not overly intense so that it drowns out the chorus. Because the chorus has very long-held vocals. So you're going to struggle if you try to map everything in the verses as all the vocals with circles. That's a common issue with vocal maps. So instead, moving into the chorus here, what we're going to do is we've already set up our sort of intensity, the general intensity with the sliders, but I want to map the vocals, but I want to also map the intensity, right, of this. And it's very intense here with lots of piano, lots of drum, but the vocals are not very intense at all. Or not very dense. They're intense, but not dense, right? They're not rhythmically suited to like streams or 1-2 jumps or things like that. So I kind of want to try to find a way to merge all of them. And so for the vocal, the long held vocal, what I'm thinking I'm gonna do is like a 3/4 slider into a slider like this. Sort of creates that held feeling, but because I break it up into this rhythm instead, it kind of keeps a higher density. And I'm going to do more sliders because there's this long held vocal in the background. I still want to map that, and if I do a bunch of like circles, I start to lose sight of that. And then circles are easy here because there's not that held vocal anymore. And I could do another... But what's going to end up happening if I keep doing that, I'm going to end up with this rhythm being used constantly. So I'm not going to be able to do that for all of them. I'm going to have to prioritize which vocals I really think are important. And in this case, this vocal starts here, actually. It doesn't even start here, so I don't actually care about this one. This one has like a sort of a decrease in intensity, plus there's the drums. So I'm going to map this one as some circles. Using the same idea that I introduced before, where if I group them according to the vocal structure, I can still map the drums, but I can still follow, and I can also follow the vocals using the grouping of the vocals. And this is going to be a repeat of this first one. It's the new measure, so it's going to be a repeat of this part. So I could probably just copy-paste this entire rhythm, and it would work just fine on the repeat. See, it works exactly the same. I could try again. It does change here, where this one didn't really have the vocal, and then over here it does. There's two vocals here. So I'm going to make that a change here, because I want to emphasize this vocal, because this vocal is kind of important to me. So I'm going to make these into circles. Because it sounds like these are all kind of one phrase to me. And this is going to be a different vocal phrase entirely. This one is not even worth copy-pasting. It still kind of works, but this one is clearly going to be different, sounding different, as you can tell based on how it sounds. Like the drums change, the vocals change, the lyrics change, lots of things change here, so I want to do a different arrangement of rhythm here. I'm going to probably do something a little bit more active, so perhaps like 1/2 sliders like this. And this is one of those funny situations where the vocal happens here. Actually, it ends up working better for me anyway. And because I'm grouping this vocal into these groupings of 2, I'm still following the vocal even though I'm using a different arrangement for it. And then lots of circles, so I'm going to happily map those as circles, because there's not really any vocal phrase I'm mapping there. Because to me, the most important thing in this part here is not the vocals, it's the piano. And so the piano is doing this, so I'm mapping the piano. Again, I'm just following whatever is the most important thing, whatever I'm going to be listening to when I'm bopping out in the car, that kind of thing. Like here, the vocal phrases are obviously very important. But here, the piano is really important here, as it is a transition phrase. In the song structure, that's what's important there, is that piano. And then this is a burst. So there's 2 snares, and then like it's a kick, and nothing really here. There's, I think, a piano. So I have a couple different options depending on how I want to do this. I could like additively add a clap here in the hit sounds later on, and nobody will notice that's not actually there. I think I will do that. I think I'll just do this, because it kind of makes the vocal phrase all grouped together into one burst instead of this grouping of one thing plus a circle. Depends on how I want to do it later on. It kind of, and my rhythm choice there is going to depend on my patterning up until that point. So I'm going to leave this up into the air for now. All right, coming over here, we're going to start patterning it. So I basically mapped the first part of the first chorus, and the second chorus and the repeats each chorus are going to be much of the same thing, with maybe slight tweaks depending on how the song changes in each of those variations. Like, I could just literally copy paste this entire thing, and like over here, and it's going to work just fine, with maybe some slight tweaks being needed as depending on what is changing in the song. Now, do not copy paste exact patterning. What you want to copy paste is copy pasting rhythm is generally okay as long as you're adapting it depending on what the song has changed. But what you want to copy is the ideas of the patterns, not the patterns themselves, right? So I like to copy paste them before I patterned it so that I don't run the risk of making the patterns too similar and then it gets boring. Okay, and then here we're going to pattern it. Going to keep these close because it's not a very big distance. So slight spacing is okay. Overlaps are totally okay as well. So I might do like a slight spacing because the slider velocity out of this is pretty high. So, and I think I'm going to make it like a sort of a continuity thing. Like I'm going to make it continuous because it's all one vocal phrase. Make it kind of all smooth and continuous feeling when you play it. Probably do something like this. We'll just keep that rotation going. And then maybe break the rotation on this one. I don't really like that angle though. And kind of just finding a spot in here to place these where I can then break away next in the next pattern. That's good enough for me. And I'm going to go somewhere else that I haven't really been up here in this corner, so I'm probably going to go up here. Breaking away from the pattern gives it more emphasis. And then I was also thinking about rotation. And I was kind of moving diagonally on the playfield, so it doesn't really matter that much. But if I was, say, moving in one direction around the playfield, I would try to change the direction here for more emphasis. And, you know, you can copy-paste this for, like, keeping the sort of same curvature, roughly, but it kind of loses the curvature anyway. So I don't really bother. I just kind of hand-place these sliders to make them look nice. Just because of the curvature. So I'm just kind of keeping the same grouping. In this case, what I did was I copy-pasted and flipped it. And then over here, I copy paste flipped it again, but because I don't have room on this side to like do this, I guess I could do that. Not terrible, but I don't really have the same spacing that I would want to work with. So in this case, I think that doing this is okay because it's the same idea. It's just in a different spot. And it's a different verse or measure, so that's okay. I don't have a problem with it. And I'll probably just go over here. I'm kind of keeping these sort of transitionary stacks kind of close together so they don't have like big spacing everywhere, because then it gets really monotonous and boring. And, you know, maybe at this point, because I've kind of put all these in one part of the playfield, like in each corner, I'll just keep doing that, where each one is going to be in its own, you know, corner of the playfield, like this. And I'll probably change the rotation to go counterclockwise around the playfield now. Doing this. And I think I'll copy paste this over here. So let's see what that results in. Oh, wait, I don't want to rotate. Copy paste flip. So I think I'll move this out slightly to make room. That seems to work just fine. We do this. And I'll keep the stacks, I think, for this one, because they are different. But I'll keep the stacks, but make them bigger spaced. Oh, I messed up with this one, actually. It's supposed to be like this. The vocal starts on the 16. There's the vocal, so there's like a vocal here, and then it leads into this. Okay, so I kind of messed this one up when I was rhythming it. But I don't want a circle here and then leading into more circles for a different rhythm. So I'm going to make this different. Probably going to do a repeat. Because the nice thing about the repeats is it maps this act passively instead of just ignoring it. So it keeps up the density. Because if I did like a long held slider, it gets kind of too passive here. It's actually not terrible, honestly. It's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. I don't mind that, actually, I think. I think I might do like this. Might like sort of put it in this pattern here, maybe. Maybe place it on this. And again, just kind of making this bigger spacing. And I'm going to make this one a different feeling, different, you know, movement. So perhaps I will do, and it's going to be that sort of naturally, but perhaps I'll do like this. Like this. Something like this. And I'll probably place this over here so it's not so big spaced. This is a very long vocal, so I'm going to extend this. Okay, actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to make this a burst. Now, I wouldn't expect you to do this, but this is what I'm going to do. Because there's like a... I think the held slider didn't really work, the long one. So I'm going to make this more active, like this. It's kind of just a feeling thing. Additive rhythms are fairly advanced anyway, so... I'll do this. Burst of some kind. Oops, what am I doing? Well, bam, bam, bam. And I'm probably going to make this all into one piece there. So this is really where that starts, doesn't it? I don't really like the kick slider. I want to group it like this. So I think this should be over here, yeah. I have to figure out where to place this exactly. So I'll probably place it like right here. Sort of it's in that structure there. It doesn't really matter that much because nobody's gonna really notice that. Maybe I'll place this in. Yeah, I think I'll do that because I like that it sort of sets this up nicely. And I'm hand placing the stream because I think I can make it look okay just by hand placing it. And I'm too lazy to pull out the tools. I think I'm going to make more of a gradual decrease. Something like this makes it a little bit more gradual in terms of that spacing decrease. Or a little bit more noticeable, I should say. And that you want to do. So now I'm going to go back and make sure it kind of makes sense. I'm going to NC these. So that they're kind of separate from everything around it, which I think gives it a nice touch. And I am treating them like they're separate. I wonder if I can do this. I think I liked having that circle there. So I think I'll leave it there. Okay. So that's I'm a little over an hour into mapping this. You can kind of see that the process. And make sure my volumes are okay and they're not gonna blow somebody's eardrums here. That's good. So hopefully seeing me map some of this made sense. Because like once you sort of have the generic structure for how you're gonna map each section, all the repeated sections are going to be very similar in most important ways, right? The hardest part is sort of just figuring out the first iteration, and then the next hard part is going to be figuring out, okay, how to make it slightly different when the song changes. And that's going to come down to experience and practice. And also, don't create an idea so specific that you cannot apply any variation to it later. But yeah, hopefully this helps. And if you give it a shot, please do send me your map. I'm always happy to give feedback and tips and tricks and create some content out of it, that kind of thing. So yeah, cool. I will have the map download for this in the description of this video, so you can go ahead and download it and sort of see what I did. What I encourage you to do is not to copy exactly what I've done, but take the ideas and what I said, my thought process and that kind of thing, and try to apply it to your own ideas. Because nobody wants a exact copycat of themselves. That's kind of boring. But yeah, cheers and have a good one.